Hi students, welcome back to the Google Classroom of Class 10 Economics, Chapter 4, Globalization and the Indian Economy. How are you children? I hope all of you are safe and fine there at home. In the last class, we have learnt about the topic foreign trade and integration of markets and globalization. What do you mean by globalization? Globalization is the process of rapid integration and interconnection between the countries. Today, we would focus on the topic factors that have enabled globalization and WTO, that means World Trade Organization. Children, what are the factors that have enabled globalization? Technology and the development of information technology and communication. What are the factors responsible for globalization? Technology and development in telecommunication, computer, internet, etc. That means the development in information and communication technology. So first one is technology. Rapid improvement in technology has been one of the major factors that has stimulated the globalization process. Rapid improvement in technology. In the last 50 years, the world has witnessed a major improvement in transportation technology. This has made much faster delivery of goods across long distance at lower cost. Children, look at this picture. Containers for transport of goods. Goods are placed in containers that can be loaded intact onto ships, railways, planes and trucks. Containers have led to a huge reduction in port handling cost and increased the speed with which exports can reach markets. Similarly, the cost of air transport has fallen. This has enabled much greater volumes of goods being transported by airlines. Another important factor is the development in information and communication technology. In recent times, technology in the areas of telecommunications, computers, internet has been changing rapidly. Telecommunication facilities like telegraph, telephone, including mobile phones, fax, etc. are used to contact one another around the world, to access information instantly, and to communicate from remote areas. This has been facilitated by satellite communication devices. So children, in short, the development in telecommunications, computers, internet, etc. have given a big boost to the process of globalization. Because of the modern facilities, it is very easy to access information instantly and to communicate from remote areas. Children, look here. This is an example of using IT in globalization. A new magazine published for London readers is to be designed and printed in Delhi. The text of the magazine is sent through internet to the Delhi office. The designers in the Delhi office get orders on how to design the magazine from the office in London using telecommunication facilities. The designing is done on a computer. After printing, the magazines are sent by air to London. Even the payment of money for designing and printing from a bank in London to a bank in Delhi is done instantly through the internet banking. That means e-banking. So children, information and communication technology has played a major role in spreading out production of services across the countries. After independence, Indian government had put trade barriers to foreign trade and foreign investment. This was considered necessary to protect producers within the country, that means domestic producers, from foreign competition. Children, let us return to the example of imports of Chinese toys in India. Suppose the Indian government puts a tax on import of toys. What would happen? Those who wish to import these toys would have to pay tax on this. Because of the tax, buyers will have to pay a higher price on imported toys. So Chinese toys will no longer be as cheap in the Indian markets, and imports from China will automatically reduce. Indian toy makers will prosper. Liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policy. Children, what do you mean by liberalization? The liberalization of trade means allowing foreign companies to start their business as government restrictions are removed. So, removing barriers or restrictions set by the government is what is known as liberalization. Okay, then what do you mean by trade barrier? Some restriction on foreign goods like tax on imports, that is known as trade barrier. Government can use trade barriers to increase or decrease foreign trade and to decide what kind of goods and how much of each should come into the country. So what do you mean by trade barrier? Some restrictions on foreign goods. For example, tax on imports. Restrictions in trade among countries. Traditionally, the countries of the world were very conservative and did not allow the foreign trade freely. They imposed many barriers to restrict trade, such as high rate of tax, banning export or import of some products, banning trade with some selected countries. The Indian government, after independence, had put trade barriers to foreign investment. This was considered necessary to protect the producer within the country from foreign competition. In 1991, the government decided that time had come for Indian producers to compete with producers around the globe. It felt that competition would improve the performance of the producers within the country, that means domestic producers, since they would have to improve their quality. Barriers to foreign trade and foreign investment were removed to a large extent. Removing of these restrictions or barriers set by the government was termed as liberalization. With liberalization of trade, businessmen are allowed to take decisions freely about what they wish to import or export. The government imposes much less restrictions than before and is therefore said to be more liberal. Have you ever heard about WTO? That means World Trade Organization. It is a very powerful international organization. What is the main aim of this WTO? The main aim of this WTO is to liberalize foreign trade. WTO or the World Trade Organization is an organization which deals with the rules of trade among the nations. WTO is one such organization whose aim to liberalize international trade. Started at the initiative of the developed countries, WTO establishes rules regarding international trade and sees that these rules are obeyed. At present, 164 countries of the world are currently members of the WTO. Though WTO is supposed to allow a free trade to all, in practice it is seen that the developed countries have unfairly retained trade barriers. On the other hand, WTO rules have forced the developing countries to remove the trade barriers. An example of this is the current debate on trade in agricultural products. So children, take page number 65 of your textbook and read the debate on trade practices. So children, it's time to wind up our session. What are the factors that have enabled globalization? Technology, that means the development of information technology and communication. Then what do you mean by liberalization? Removing of trade barriers or restrictions set by the government is known as liberalization. Then what do you mean by WTO or World Trade Organization? It is a very powerful international organization which aims at the liberalization of international trade. So children, please note that the corresponding URL, notes of the lesson and test paper are also attached along with this video. Make use of all these available resources, study well and attend the test paper without fail. Thank you.